If you're going to build a model school, it has to design for scale from the start. The curriculum, the pedagogy, the assessments, the teacher training modules, leadership modules, all of these are aspects that really help a school reach that level of excellence.
Hello and welcome to Up Close and Personal Season 2 at Invocate Studio, where we dive deep into the heart of leadership, education equity and collective action. I'm your host Pavitra, and today we have with us Karishma Sanghvi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
If I could briefly introduce you for our viewers. Karishma Sanghvi is the founder of Shikha Academy, pioneering 21st century education for underprivileged students. With degrees from Harvard and University of Pennsylvania, she drives innovation in learning through Shikha Labs and Shikha Institute of Education, while pursuing a PhD at IIT Bombay. It's a delight to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Likewise.
What is, if I could begin this conversation, what is one thing that keeps you motivated to work in the education industry?
I think the education industry is so ripe for transformation. Right. All aspects of the system are now aligning, whether it is technology, whether it is the government policy, whether it is the mindset shift that people are having. It's a really, really ripe problem to solve. Yeah. And it's a massive problem. We know that every other sort of systemic problem has bad education as one of the causes for it. So the ROI, if you can fix education, is massive for the country. And for me personally, what drives me is having the school and looking at the students, thrive and do better. Seeing that aha moment, that light bulb go off in their heads, that is personally what drives me.
Definitely, that's really nice, and I think we can take inspiration from you for what you're doing at Shikha Academy.
Thank you.
Could you talk a little about how Shikha Academy works quite differently from, say, a government school?
Yeah, so Shikha Academy is follows the IGCSE, the Cambridge board. Mostly in India, the IGCSE and the IB boards are in wealthier schools with quite high fees. So when we started Shikha, we said, let's use philanthropy, which should be used as risk capital, to take some risks, to try something unique and something new. So we said, why can't we see if the IGCSE board can service kids who need it the most, which are the low-income children who live in the slums around the school. We began with that perception, and very quickly, within a year, we realized, of course, they're more than capable of doing a high-quality international board. So at that point, we said, let's use Shikha Academy as a lab school, as an experimental school. There is very little K-12 educational research that is happening in our country. So let's use this as a center of excellence, but also a lab for such research to happen. So we started the Shikha Institute of Education, which sits within the school. And while doing research, recreates a whole school model from the ground up, from first principles. And we look at the school as a system. Every single aspect of the school, we've had to redesign from scratch, trying to pull education from the 1970s, where it is right now, straight to the 21st century. And so this required a very fresh view, and it required a place for us to try out these interventions. So the Shikha Institute has a brand new curriculum that is built for scale. If you're going to build a model school and it's not scalable, there's no real point. I mean, we have many, many model schools in the country. So everything we design has to design for scale from the start, but also meet that high quality bar. And a lot of technology is used, a lot of templatization, a lot of SOPs, a lot of learnings from the corporate world, where we've seen this happen so effectively. So we've built out the curriculum, the pedagogy, the assessments, the teacher training modules, leadership modules, the school design. All of these are aspects that really help a school reach that level of excellence. So that is what the the Shikha Institute does. Recently, we began a company within the school. It's an AI company. And so we used this, so we have a lot of problems that we see that emerge in the classroom. And so we build products that could help teachers, to support them to teach better using these like tech tools, and these are very, very scalable tech tools now. We're in a great time in the world where we have access to AI, we have access to very cheap tools like this. And because we have the school, whatever we build, we test it out within the school, see if it works, and do a design-based thinking process right there and then in the school.
That's really very nice. And I feel identifying the need and working towards it with the available tools that we have right now is really a movement by itself.
Absolutely.
You spoke about scaling design, right? And we have, you also mentioned about templates, SOPs, and multiple other modules that you mentioned. There might be different extrinsic factors also that come into picture.
Right.
How do you deal with scaling your impact with these extrinsic factors?
You know, there's a big problem in the sector. There's a lot of pendulum swings that happen. So we started, you know, when we started education in the country, it was very rigorous, very controlled, set curricula, set syllabus, set board exams, etc. And then we sort of want to break away from that. So we've gone, in some places, we've gone completely the opposite and said that let everything be, you know, from the ground, from the students, like make it contextual. The problem is you lose high quality there, right? Because it's a lot of variability. It very much then depends on the quality of the teacher, the quality of the school, and it's not fair in that way. So what we said is, you know, we have a concept called the walled garden approach. The walled garden is, you have a garden, you have complete autonomy and freedom, you can see the context of your child, you can design programs based on where you are and what makes sense for your student.
Right.
But there are certain walls of high quality, high rigor, which you cannot compromise on.
Okay.
So that the floor, the lowest possible educational level is still very, very high. Of course, the ceiling can be anything. Like a really good teacher can take a curriculum and then just make it, you know, amazing. But a really, really bad sort of an unequipped teacher can't really mess up the child too much because there are those walls.
I think that's a really interesting idea, which I think even we can adopt into our programs as well. Moving forward, you have had this experience from a very long time. How do you define leadership?
I would say leadership is, it's a very tough thing because it again depends a lot on context and what your goals are and who you have in that particular sector. We've seen, for example, that in sectors that are not very corporate, you're not getting the best capacity people, right? But you are getting a lot of passionate people. So when you sort of work with a team, right, I think it's really important to harness that passion and at the same time allow for the building of capacity. I think the same principles that you would use in a school to train a student, right? Where you say that I have high expectations from you, I will support you to reach those high expectations, right? But you need to sort of perform, and I am in charge of motivating you to the reason why you're there. Those same principles you could follow as a leader as well, right? And I think there are a lot of principles like, you know, praise in public, you know, give feedback in private. Lot of communication is required. You need to build a lot of trust. You need to align on a common mission. It's very important. Everything you do sort of has to meet that mission. And you set the culture. I think the leader's personality sets the culture of the organization. So you need to be watching yourself all the time. Self-introspection, self-reflection, journaling, all really help in terms of building leadership.
That's really nice. And I think I really like the way you have put that out as well.
Thank you.
If we could move forward from there, we have people with different mindsets also who come to such kind of spaces. And how do we ensure that collective action can be driven with those mindsets as well?
I think changing mindsets or aligning mindsets is one of the biggest problems that we face in the 21st century, especially with the diversity of opinion and the freedom we have to sort of decide things for ourselves. So it's a problem I don't think me or anyone else has sort of cracked yet. It's a psychological sort of a challenge. But I think clarity of goal and kind of alignment, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses is really important, because you look at your weaknesses and you see, who can I help me, you know, take care of this particular weakness that I have. So again, going back to self-introspection, what is it that I want to do? And therefore, who do I need to support me to
Right.
get to this particular goal.
Right.
And I think you all are doing this really well in Invoke. You're getting a lot of complementary people to
Yeah.
work on their individual strengths together to create a system that works.
Right, right. I was going to ask you that, Ki, how
Yeah.
do you look at spaces like InvoKid and leverage those resources from here as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's very often, you are doing your work in your own little silo.
Yeah.
And sometimes one meeting with one person that you didn't even think was going to be, transformational,
Right.
just opens up this whole new sort of world for you.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have these collaborations. For example, this morning I met with the Nagaland, government ministries of education. It's fascinating how similar their problems are
Yeah.
to us,
Yeah.
and yet how different.
Right.
So it's really important to sort of learn. And when you say you want to keep an open mind, the best way is to just talk and listen to people.
Yes.
And that's what Invoke does so well.
I think there's also a lot of scope for learning in that sense as well for us to
Absolutely.
implement in our own programs.
Correct.
If we could switch gears a little bit, as you can see, there are some jars in front of us,
Yes.
and it's of different topics.
Sure.
Whatever interests you, could you pick a chit from that and answer that for us?
I think tech seems the most full, so let me go for tech.
Go ahead.
It's amazing. How do you see AI and automation shaping the future of work? Yeah, so this is, like I said, it's an evolving field, and giving blanket futuristic statements on AI is a terrible idea because in the next month, something
Yeah.
might change and you will
Right.
have to rethink everything about AI that you thought of earlier. So I am very hesitant to sort of give predictions or
Right.
say what can happen. But I definitely feel that we need to rethink a lot of what is worth learning
Right.
and what is not worth learning
Yeah.
like anymore.
Yeah.
And so the shift of human cognition, which can be reflected in our curriculum, in our schools, is extremely important. And everyone should learn AI without fail.
Yeah.
Because we don't know where the applications can be transformational. And so you need to come with your own domain skills and knowledge and then figure out, okay, this AI tool can be used here.
Yeah.
Right? But that first domain knowledge and skill is super, super important. Otherwise, there's no point.
Right. I
Yeah.
think going to the core of the whole thing makes it really valuable for
Yes.
us to look forward as
Yeah.
well.
So domain expertise will still be required,
Yes. Yes.
even with AI.
Correct. If we could go back to your childhood days when you were at school,
Yeah.
what is something that you miss from those days right now?
Yeah. I'll think about this. I think till I got exposed to what education should be like, I thought I was in a great education system. I did pretty well. It sort of worked for me. It didn't work for a lot of my friends, it didn't work for a lot of my family.
Yeah.
But for me, it worked. And so you sort of, slotted into a particular persona. Oh, she's a smart kid. Or
Right.
she's, so it's a very, so at that point, if you are succeeding in that education system, I think you sort of enjoy a lot. But I would say very little about what my childhood education was like should be replicated now. It's throw everything out.
Right.
Start from scratch. Think again.
Yeah,
Right? So
So, were you a front bencher or a last bencher in that case?
I was a last bencher
Yeah.
because I was bored in class. I think that was,
Okay.
So my teachers used to pick on me and put me in the front so that I'd pay attention.
Yeah, I think I resonate with that as well.
Yes.
And is there any teacher who, despite that, inspired you to what you are doing today?
It's a tough one because there was no one in school to think. Who sort of inspired?
It could be from your
Yeah,
university days as well.
Yeah, I think where I did my masters, the professors were themselves educationists, right? So they were at the cutting edge of high quality pedagogy, and they knew what were the tricks to motivate students really well.
Yeah.
So I think when I was doing my masters, apart from learning the content from these professors, I was analyzing every single class to see what pedagogy were they using that made me so excited about this particular subject or this field. And they were dense, boring material if it's very, very specific things as an educationist. but the way they understood the psychology of the student and harnessed it to make the class really exciting, I think there's a lot of lessons for us to learn from there.
I think I wouldn't be wrong if I said that you picked some of those into what you're doing right now as well.
Very much,
Shikha
very
Academy,
much.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that was really an interesting point as
Yes.
well. I think we are here at the end of our episode, and I'd like to end with this one last question. What is your hope for the future of education in this country?
I hope that India is not a laggard. In fact, it's the pioneer of high quality education systems in the world. We should be leading this charge. We should be setting an example for the rest of the world.
Yeah,
And we can do it.
definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you for sharing all your stories and wisdom also with us.
Thanks so
I
much.
am sure our viewers will take back a lot from this conversation.
Thank you.
With that, we are at the end of this episode of Up Close and Personal Season 2. I'm your host Pavitra, here with Karishma Sanghvi. Thank you for the audience also for tuning in. Stay connected, keep the dialogue going. See you all in the next episode.